Cincinnati tells of the Wax Man, a man with a wax face who drives a beat-up golden car down I-71 at midnight every night. Many adventurous teenagers and other thrill-seekers wait until his car passes by and follow them along his route, where he plays tricks and tries to time the spotlights to lose his followers. The legends say that his destination every night is a junkyard, and the only people who have managed to follow him all the way have never spoken of what they saw. Here in Arkansas, we have the Gurdon Light. The locals say that if you go looking for it on the railroad, you'll always find it, and that if you turn around, it'll be behind you too, or just disappear when you turn back. Supposedly, it's the lantern light from a dead railroad worker who was beheaded in an accident. Here's the story of Cold Friday Road. In southern Indiana, very close to the Hoosier National Forest, there's an old horse trail that cuts through the woods to the Ohio River that got paved over years ago. It turns back into a dirt road before you get to the river. Legend has it that one particularly cold Friday night in the fall, a guy took his horse out on the trail. He left just before sundown on his horse to go camping, but ended up getting extremely lost. It got very cold that night, and him and his horse were both found a few days later, frozen. The road has a lot of hills and valleys. When you walk down the road on a Friday night, you feel the temperature drop from comfortable with a sweater on at the top of the hill to shivering uncontrollably with a big coat on once you enter the valley. Cordova, Alaska, here. It's kind of a small legend, but a legend nonetheless. The legend of Miss Paunty. There really isn't much to it, but it goes like this. The old widow, Miss Ponte, resided in the cabin that she and her husband had built around the 40s or 50s. Her husband died of tuberculosis, which was a common thing to get back in the early days of Alaska. Those who suffered the greatest from TB were the natives, and so she blamed them for passing on the TB to him somehow, and lived the rest of her life in resentment for them. People saw her take dead ravens to her house sometimes. She explained that she liked the taste of them. It's old native tradition not to mess with ravens, since the spirit of ravens are powerful and spiteful. And so, Miss Ponte was cursed to live her life with the legs of a wolf instead of a woman, doomed to repulse everyone who sees her. Our town had the Pigman. He lived down in the valley by the river, on some property in the woods. He didn't technically own the property, but the farmer who did never used it, as it was too swampy for crops, and he was too afraid to evict him. The guy would breed pigs out in the marshland by the river. Lots of them. He'd feed them, raise them, care for them, and then he'd slaughter and eat them, and mount the heads on trees across the valley. He must have died in the mid-90s because that's when the heads stopped appearing, but the legend still lives on, and people really don't like that forest. This happened in Seattle. On February 19th, 1983, at 12:30 a.m., 3 men talked their way into an illegal gambling den in Chinatown. They then proceeded to hogtie and rob the 13 patrons, then executed each one with shots to the head. One patron, although shot, survived to identify the gunman. It became known as the Thewami Massacre. After removing the bodies, the police padlocked the door, and the room remained untouched for decades. The alley leading to the door was dark and creepy. If you went to the door at 12:30 on February 19th, it was said that you could hear muffled shots and screams through the door. I went there once when I was in college at the University of Washington several years ago. I did hear the screams, but it's in a sketchy part of town, so I couldn't investigate more at the time. The place burned down a few years ago.